Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to another Sister for Sister story time session with your favorite sister Shaya, the Demon Slayer. Today we are talking about um, Baal again, but in the we're talking about May Day or Beltane, which is basically the springtime Halloween. So I got a lot of stuff to read, but I'm going to start with the May Day definition, which because it popped up first when I was researching. So, May Day is an emergency procedure word used internationally as a distress signal in voice procedure radio communications. It is used to signal a life threatening emergency primarily by aviators and mariners, but in some countries, local organizations such as firefighters, police forces, and transportation organizations also use the term. Con- Alrighty. Convention requires the word be repeated 3 times in a row during the initial emergency declaration, Mayday, 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 to prevent it being mistaken for some similar sounding phrase under noisy conditions like them shooting, and to distinguish an actual Mayday call from a message about a Mayday call. History. The Mayday procedure word was conceived as a distress call in the early 1920s by Frederick Stanley Mockford, officer in charge of radio at Croydon Airport, England. He had been asked to think of a word that would indicate stress and would easily be understood by all pilots and ground staff in an emergency. Since much of the air traffic at the time was between Croydon and Le Bourget Airport in Paris, he proposed the term Mayday, the phonetic equivalent of the French Maides, help me, or Maider, a short form of Venez Maider, come and help me. The term is unrelated to the holiday May Day, so they say. Following tests, the new procedure word was introduced for cross channel flights in February 1923, which uh, February is another time where they celebrate these festivals. The previous distress call had been the Morse code signal SOS, but this was not considered suitable for voice communication, owing to the difficulty of distinguishing the letter S by telephone. In 1927, the International Radio Telegraph Convention of Washington adopted the voice call Mayday as the radio telephone distress call, in addition to the SOS radio telegraph Morse code signal. Mayday calls. If a Mayday call cannot be sent because a radio is not available, a variety of other distress signals and calls for help can be used. Additionally, a Mayday call can be sent on behalf of one vessel by another. This is known as a Mayday relay. Civilian aircraft making a Mayday call in United States airspace are encouraged by Federal Aviation Administration to use the following format, omitting any, omitting any portions as necessary for expediency or where they are irrelevant, like capitalization as in the original source. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Name of station addressed. Aircraft call sign and type, nature of emergency, weather, pilot's intentions and or request, present position and heading, or if lost, then last known position and heading and time when aircraft was at that position. Altitude or flight level, fuel remaining in minutes, number of people on board, and any other useful information. Making a false distress call in a is a criminal offense in many countries, punishable by a fine, restitution, and possible imprisonment. Other urgent calls. Pan Pan, PAN, from the French pan, PANNE, a breakdown indicates an urgent situation, such as a requiring immediate assistance. The suffix medico originally was to be added by vessels in British waters to indicate a medical problem. Pan pan medico repeated 3 times, or by aircraft declaring a non life threatening medical emergency of a passenger in flight, or excuse me, water, mayday. Alrighty. So, repeating 3 times pan pan medico, or by aircraft declaring a non life threatening medical emergency of a passenger in flight or those operating as protected medical transport in accordance with the Geneva Conventions. Pan pan medico is no longer in official use. Declaring emergency. Sometimes the phrase declaring emergency is used in aviation as an alternative to calling Mayday. For example, in 1998, Swiss Air Flight 111 radioed, Swiss Air 111 Heavy is declaring emergency after their situation had worsened, upgrading from the Pan Pan, which was declared earlier. However, the International Civil Aviation Organization recommends the use of the standard Pan Pan and Mayday calls instead of declaring an emergency. Cases of pilots using phrases other than Pan Pan and Mayday have caused confusion and errors in aircraft handling. Silencing other communications traffic. Silence Mayday, using an approximation of the French pronunciation of silence, is a demand that the channel only be used by the vessel or vessels and authorities involved with the distress. The channel may not be used for normal working traffic until Silence Fini is broadcast. Silence Mayday and Silence Fini may only be sent by the controlling station in charge of the distress. The expression stop transmitting Mayday is an aeronautical equivalent of Silence Mayday. Silence Distress and Prudence are no longer in use since ITU WRC07. The format for a Silence Mayday is Mayday in all caps, all stations times 3, or interfering station times 3. This is controlling station Silence Mayday ITURR 2016. Silence Fini, from French silence fini or silence finished, means that the emergency situation has been concluded and the channel may now be used normally. Distress traffic ended is the aeronautical equivalent of silence fini. The format for the silence fini is Mayday all caps, all stations times 3. This is controlling station times 3. Date and time in UTC. Distressed vessels MMS1 number, distressed vessels name, distressed vessels call sign, Silence Fini, all caps, ITURR 2016. Now, Mayday, the holiday. Mayday is a European festival of ancient origins marking the beginning of summer, usually celebrated on May 1st, around halfway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. Festivities may also be held the night before, known as May Eve. Traditions often include gathering wildflowers and green branches, weaving floral garlands, crowning a May queen, sometimes with a male companion, and setting up a May pole, May tree, or May bush around which people dance. Bonfires are also part of the festival in some regions. Regional varieties and related traditions include Walpurgis Night in Central and Northern Europe, the Gaelic festival Beltane, the Welsh festival Calan May, and May devotions to the Blessed Virgin Mary. It has also been associated with the ancient Roman festival Floralia. In 1889, the 1st of May was chosen as the date for International Workers' Day by the Second International to commemorate the Haymarket Affair in Chicago and the struggle for an 8-hour working day. As a result, International Workers' Day is also called May Day, but the two are otherwise unrelated. Origins and celebrations. The earliest known May celebrations appeared with the Floralia, Festival of Flora, which is my grandmother's name. The Roman goddess of flowers, held from April 27th to May 3rd during the Roman Republic era, and the Myoma or Mauma, a festival celebrating Dionysus and Aphrodite, held every 3 years during the month of May. The Floralia opened with theatrical performances. In the Floralia, Ovid says that hares and goats were released as part of the festivities. Perseus writes that crowds were pelted with vetches, beans, and lupins. A ritual called the Florifertum was performed on either April 27th or May 3rd, during which a bundle of wheat ears was carried into a shrine, though it is not clear if this devotion was made to Flora or Ceres. Floralia concluded with competitive events and spectacles and a sacrifice to Flora. Mauma was celebrated at least as early as the 2nd century AD, when records show expenses for the month long festival were appropriated by Emperor Commodus. According to the 6th century chronicles of John Malalas, the Myoma was a nocturnal dramatic festival held every 3 years and known as orgies, that is, the mysteries of Dionysus and Aphrodite, and that it was known as the Myomas because it is celebrated in the month of May, Artemiosis or Artemisius. During this time, enough money was set aside by the government for torches, lights, and other expenses to cover a 30-day festival of all night revels. The Myoma or Mayoma was celebrated with splendorous banquets and offerings. Its reputation for licentiousness caused it to be suppressed during the reign of Emperor Constantine, though a less debauched version of it was briefly restored during the reigns of Arcadius and Honorius or Honorius, only to be suppressed again during the same period. A later May festival celebrated in Germanic countries, Walpurgis Night, commemorates the official canonization of Saint Walpurga on May 1st, 870, in Gaelic culture. The evening of April 30th was the celebration of Beltane, which translates to lucky fire, as well as the similar Welsh Calan May, and marks the start of the summer season. First attested in 900 AD, the celebration mainly focused on the symbolic use of fire to bless cattle and other livestock as they were moved to summer pastures. This custom continued into the early 19th century, during which time cattle would be made to jump over fires to protect their milk from being stolen by fairies. People would also leap over the fires for luck. Since the 18th century, many Roman Catholics have observed May and May Day with various May devotions to the Blessed Virgin Mary. In works of art, school skits, and so forth, Mary's head will often be adorned with flowers in a May crowning. May 1st is also one of two feast days of the Catholic patron saint of workers, Saint Joseph the Worker, a carpenter, husband to Mother Mary, and foster father of Jesus. Replacing another feast to Saint Joseph, this date was chosen by Pope Pius XII in 1955 as a counterpoint to the Communist International Workers' Day celebrations on May Day. The best known modern May Day traditions observed both in Europe and North America include dancing around the maypole and crowning the Queen of May. Fading in popularity since the late 20th century is the tradition of giving of May baskets, small baskets of sweets or flowers, usually left anonymously on neighbors' doorsteps. In the late 20th century, many neo pagans began reconstructing some of the older pagan festivals and combining them with more recently developed European secular and Catholic traditions, and celebrating May Day as a pagan religious festival. Walpurgis related traditions. In rural regions of Germany, especially the Harz Mountains, while Purgisnacht celebrations of pagan origin are traditionally held on the night before May Day, including bonfires and the wrapping of a May bomb or maypole. Young people use this opportunity to party while the day itself is used by many families to get some fresh air. The motto, Tans in den May, dance into May. In the Rhineland, the 1st of May is also celebrated by the delivery of a maypole, a tree covered in streamers, to the house of a girl the night before. The tree is typically from a love interest, though a tree wrapped only in white streamers is a sign of dislike. Women usually place roses or rice in the form of a heart at the house of their beloved one. It is common to stick the heart to a window or place it in front of the doormat. In leap years, it is the responsibility of the women to place the maypole. All the action is usually done secretly, and it is an individual's choice whether to give a hint of their identity or stay anonymous. May Day was not established as a public holiday until Nazi Germany declared the 1st of May a National Workers' Day in 1933. As Labor Day, many political parties and unions host activities related to work and employment. In the Czech Republic, May Day is traditionally considered a holiday of love, and May as a month of love. These celebrations of spring are held on April 30th when a maypole or mashka in Czech is erected. A tradition possibly connected to Beltane, since bonfires are also lit on the same day. The event is similar to German Walpurgisnacht, its public holiday on 30th April. On the 31st of May, the maypole is taken down in an event called maypole felling. On the 1st of May, couples in love kiss under a blooming tree. According to the ethnographer Clara Toscana, this is not an old habit. It most likely originated around the beginning of the 20th century in an urban environment, perhaps in connection with Carol Heinrich Mascha's poem Maj, which is often recited during these days, and Petrin. This is usually done under a cherry, an apple, or a birch tree. In Sweden, the more traditional festivities have moved to the day before, Walpurgis Night, or Valborgs Massafton, known in some locales as simply last of April, and often celebrated with bonfires and a good bit of drinking. The 1st of May is instead celebrated as International Workers' Day. Beltane related traditions. In Ireland, May Day has been celebrated in Ireland since pagan times as the Feast of Beltane, and in latter times as Mary's Day. Traditionally, bonfires were lit to mark the coming of summer and to grant luck to people and livestock. Officially, Irish May Day holiday is the first Monday in May. The tradition of a May bush was reported as being suppressed by law and the magistrates in Dublin in the 18th century. Old traditions such as bonfires are no longer widely observed, though the practice still persists in some places across the country. Limerick, Clare, and many other people in other countries still keep on this tradition, including areas in Dublin City, such as Ringsend. In Scotland, May Day has been celebrated in Scotland for centuries. It was previously closely associated with the Beltane festival. Reference to this earlier celebration is found in poem Pebbles to the Play, contained in the Maitland manuscripts of 15th and 16th century Scots poetry. The poem describes the celebration in the town of Peebles in the Scottish borders, which continues to stage a parade and pageant each year, including the annual Common Riding, which takes place in many towns throughout the borders, as well as the crowning of a Beltane queen each year. It is custom to sing the Beltane song. John Jameson, in his Etymological Dictionary of the Scottish Language in 1808, describes some of the May Day Beltane customs which persisted in the 18th and early 19th centuries in parts of Scotland, which he noted were beginning to die out. In the 19th century, folklorist Alexander Carmichael, 1832 through 1912, collected the song Beanach Benachad Beltane, the Beltane blessing, in his Carmina Gadelica, which he heard from a crofter in South Uist. Scottish May Day or Beltane celebrations have been somewhat revived since the late 20th century. Both Edinburgh and Glasgow organize May Day festivals and rallies. In Edinburgh, the Beltane Fire Festival is held on the evening of May Eve and into the early hours of May Day on the city's Calton Hill. An older Edinburgh tradition has it that young women who climb Arthur's Seat and wash their faces in the morning dew will have lifelong beauty. At the University of St. Andrews, some of the students gather on the beach late on the 30th of April and run into the North Sea at sunrise on May Day, occasionally naked. This is accompanied by torchlit processions and much elated celebration. In Wales, the first day of May is known as Callan May or Callan Haff and parallels the festival of Beltane and other May Day traditions in Europe. Traditions would start the night before Nos Galan Haff with bonfires and is considered a Yiz, Yizbridnos or spirit night when people would gather hawthorn, Dranenwyn, and flowers to decorate their houses, celebrating new growth and fertility. While on May Day celebrations would include summer dancing, Dansiohof, and May carols, or Carola May or Carola Hof, other times referred to as singing under the wall, Canu Danny paired. May Day was also a time for officially opening a village green or Tumpath Share, whatever. In Bulgaria, on May Day, Bulgarians celebrate Ermindin or Eremiah, Erema Zamski Din. The holiday is associated with snakes and lizards, and rituals are made in order to protect people from them. The name of the holiday comes from the prophet Jeremiah, but its origins are most probably pagan. It is said that on the days of the Holy 40 or Annunciation, snakes come out of their burrows, and on Ermindin, their king comes out. Old people believe that those working in the fields on this day will be bitten by a snake in summer. In western Bulgaria, people light fires, jump over them, and make noises to scare snakes. Another custom is to prepare podniki, special clay pots made for baking bread. This day is especially observed by pregnant women so that their offspring do not catch Jeremiah or an illness due to evil powers. In England, traditional English May Day rites and celebrations include crowning a May Queen and celebrations involving a maypole, around which dancers often circle with ribbons. Historically, Morris dancing has been linked to May Day celebrations. Morris code. The earliest records of maypole celebrations date to the 14th century, and by the 15th century, the maypole tradition was well established in southern Britain. The tradition persists in the 21st century in the Isle of Ely or Ely, Centenary Green, part of the Octavia Hill birthplace house. Wisbeck has a flagpole which converts into a maypole each year, used by local schools and other groups. The early May bank holiday on the first Monday in May was created in 1978. May Day itself, the 1st of May, is not a public holiday in England unless it falls on a Monday. In February 2011, the UK Parliament was reported to be considering scrapping the bank holiday associated with May Day, replacing it with a bank holiday in October, possibly coinciding with Trafalgar Day, celebrated on October 21st, to create a United Kingdom Day. Similarly, attempts were made by the John Major government in 1993 to abolish the May Day holiday and replace it with Trafalgar Day. Unlike the other bank holidays and common law holidays, the first Monday in May is taken off from state schools by itself and not as part of a half term or in term holiday. This is because it has no Christian significance and does not otherwise fit into the usual school holiday pattern. By contrast, the Easter holiday can start as late relative to Easter as Good Friday if Easter falls early in the year, or finish as early relative to Easter as Easter Monday if Easter falls late in the year, because of the supreme significance of Good Friday and Easter Day to Christianity. May Day was abolished and its celebration banned by Puritan parliaments during the interregnum, but reinstated with the restoration of Charles II in 1660. May 1st, 1707 was the day the Act of Union came into effect, joining the kingdoms of England, including Wales and Scotland, to form the Kingdom of Great Britain. In Cambridgeshire villages, young girls went May dolling, or going around the villages with dressed dolls and collecting pennies. This dressing of dolls and singing was said to have persisted into the 1960s in Swaffham Prior. In Oxford, it is a centuries old tradition for May morning revelers to gather below the great tower of Magdalen College at 6 a.m. to listen to the college choir sing traditional madrigals as a conclusion to the previous night's celebrations. Since the 1980s, some people then jump off Magdalen Bridge into the River Cherwell. For some years, the bridge has been closed on May 1st to prevent people from jumping, as the water under the bridge is only 2 feet or 61 centimeters deep, and jumping from the bridge has resulted in serious injury in the past. There are still people who climb the barriers and leap into the water, causing themselves injury. Retards. In Durham, students of the University of Durham gather on Prebends Bridge to see the sun rise and enjoy festivities, folk music, dancing, madrigal singing, and a barbecue breakfast. This is an emerging Durham tradition with patchy observance since 2001. Kingsbury Episcopi, Somerset, has seen its yearly May Day festival celebrations on the May bank holiday Monday burgeon in popularity in the recent years. Since it was reinstated 21 years ago, it has grown in size, and on May 5th, 2014, thousands of revelers were attracted from all over the Southwest to enjoy the festivities, with BBC Somerset covering the celebrations. These include traditional maypole dancing and Morris dancing, as well as contemporary music acts. Whitstable, Kent hosts a good example of more traditional May Day festivities, where the Jack in the Green Festival was revived in 1976 and continues to lead an annual procession of Morris dancers through the town on the May Bank holiday. A separate revival occurred in Hastings in 1983 and has become a major event in the town calendar. A traditional sweeps festival is performed over the Maybank holiday in Rochester, Kent, where the Jack in the Green is woken at dawn on the 1st of May by Morris dancers. At 7:15 p.m. on May 1st each year, the Kettle Bridge clogs Morris dancing side dance across Barming Bridge, otherwise known as the Kettle Bridge, which spans the river Medway near Maidstone to mark the official start of their Morris dancing season. The May Day run involves thousands of motorbikes taking a 55-mile or 89-kilometer trip from Greater London or Lock's Bottom to the Hastings seafront of East Sussex. The event has been taking place for almost 30 years now and has grown in interest from around the country, both commercially and publicly. The event is not officially organized. The police only manage the traffic and volunteers manage the parking. In Cornwall, Padstow in Cornwall holds its annual Hobby Os or Hobby Horse Day of festivities. This is believed to be one of the oldest fertility rites in the UK. Revelers dance with the os through the streets of the town, and even though the private gardens of the citizens through the private gardens of the citizens, accompanied by accordion players and followers dressed in white with red or blue sashes who sing the traditional May Day song. The whole town is decorated with springtime greenery, and every year thousands of onlookers attend. Before the 19th century, distinctive May Day celebrations were widespread throughout West Cornwall and are being revived in St. Ives and Penzance. Kingsend, Cawsand, and Millbrook in Cornwall celebrate flower boat ritual on the May Day bank holiday. A model of the ship, the Black Prince, is covered in flowers and is taken in a procession from the quay at Millbrook to the beach at Cawsand, where it is cast adrift. The houses in the villages are decorated with flowers, and people traditionally wear red and white clothes. There are further celebrations in Cawsand Square with Morris dancing and maypole dancing. In Estonia, May Day or Spring Day, Kevetpuha, is a national holiday in Estonia celebrating the arrival of spring. More traditional festivities take place throughout the night before and into the early hours of May 1st on the Walpurgis night or Valbrio or Valbriu. In Finland, Walpurgis night, Vapin, is one of the four biggest holidays along with Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and Midsummer or Johannes Midsummer. Walpurgis witnesses the biggest carnival-style festival held in Finland's cities and towns. The celebrations, which begin on the evening of April 30th and continue on the 1st of May, typically center on the consumption of sima, sparkling wine, and other alcoholic beverages. Student traditions, particularly those of engineering students, are one of the main characteristics of Vapu. Since the end of the 19th century, this traditional upper class feast has been appropriated by university students. Many Lukio, or University Preparatory High School, alumni wear the black and white student cap, and many higher education students wear student coveralls. One tradition is to drink sima, a homemade low alcohol mead, along with freshly cooked funnel cakes. In France, On May 1st, 1561, King Charles IX of France received a lily of the valley as a lucky charm. He decided to offer a lily of the valley each year to the ladies of the court. At the beginning of the 20th century, it became custom to give a sprig of lily of the valley, a symbol of springtime, on May 1st. The government permits individuals and workers' organizations to sell them tax free on that single day. Nowadays, people may present loved ones either with bunches of lily of the valley or dog rose flowers. In Greece, the 1st of May is a day that celebrates spring. Mayos, or Latin Maius, the month of May, took its name from the goddess Maya, Gramaya, the nurse, a Greek and Roman goddess of fertility. The day of Mayos celebrates the final victory of the summer against winter as the victory of life against death. The celebration is similar to an ancient ritual associated with other minor demigod Adonis, which also celebrated the revival of nature. There is today some conflation with yet another tradition, the revival of marriage of Dionysus, the Greek god of theater and winemaking. This event, however, was celebrated in ancient times not in May, but in association with the Anthesteria, a holiday held in February and dedicated to the goddess of agriculture Demeter and her daughter Persephone. Persephone emerged every year at the end of winter from the underworld. The Anasteria was a festival of souls, plants, and flowers, and Persephone's coming to earth from Hades marked the rebirth of nature, a common theme in all these traditions. What remains of the customs today echoes these traditions of antiquity. A common, until recently, May Day custom involved the annual revival of a youth called Adonis, or alternatively of Dionysus or of Myos in modern Greek, the son of Maya. In a simple theatrical ritual, the significance of which has long been forgotten, a chorus of young girls sang a song over a youth lying on the ground, representing Adonis, Dionysus, or Maios. At the end of the song, the youth rose up and a flower wreath was placed on his head. The most common aspect of modern May Day celebrations is the preparation of a flower wreath from wildflowers. Along as a result of urbanization, there is an increasing trend to buy wreaths from flower shops. The flowers are placed on the wreath against the background of green leaves, and the wreath is hung either on the entrance to the family house or apartment or on a balcony. It remains there until midsummer night. On that night, the flower wreaths are set alight in bonfires known as St. John's fires. Youths leap over the flames, consuming the flower wreaths. This custom has also practically disappeared, like the theatrical revival of Adonis, Dionysus, and Myos. As a result of rising urban traffic and with no alternative public grounds in most Greek city neighborhoods. In Italy, it is called Calendimaggio or Cantarmaggio, a seasonal feast held to celebrate the arrival of spring. The event takes its name from the period in which it takes place, that is, the beginning of May, from the Latin Calenda Maya. The Calendimaggio is a tradition still alive today in many regions of Italy as an allegory of the return to life and rebirth. Among these, Piedmont, Liguria, Lombardy, Emilia Romagna, for example, is celebrated in the area of the Quattro province or Piacenza, Pavia, Alessandria, and Genoa, Tuscany, and Umbria. This magical propitiatory ritual is often performed during an almsgiving in which, in exchange for gifts, traditionally eggs, wine, food, or sweets, the Magi or Majourni sing auspicious verses to the inhabitants of the houses they visit. Throughout the Italian peninsula, these two Maggio couplets are very diverse. Most are love songs with a strong romantic theme that young people sang to celebrate the arrival of spring. Roman families traditionally eat pecorino or pecorino with fresh fava beans during an excursion in the Roman Campagna. Symbols of spring revival are the trees, alder, golden rain, and flowers, violets and roses, mentioned in the verses of the songs and with which the Mazzarini adorned themselves. In particular, the plant alder, which grows along the rivers, is considered the symbol of life, and that's why it is often present in the ritual. Calinda Maggio can be historically noted in Tuscany as a mythical character who had a predominant role and met many of the attributes of the god Belenus. In Lucania, the Magi or Magi have a clear auspicious character of pagan origin. In Syracuse, Sicily, the Albero della Cucagna or Greasy Pole is held during the month of May, a feast celebrated to commemorate the victory over the Athenians led by Nicias. However, Angelo de Gubernatis, in his work Mythology of Plants, believes that without doubt the festival was previous to that of said victory. It is a celebration that dates back to ancient peoples and is very integrated with the rhythms of nature, such as the Celts celebrating Beltane, Etruscans, and Ligures, in which the arrival of summer was of great importance. In Portugal, Mayas is a superstition throughout Portugal, with special focus on the northern territories and rarely elsewhere. Mayas is the dominant naming in northern Portugal, but it may be referred to by other names, including Dia das Bruças or Witches' Day, O Burro, the donkey referring to an evil spirit, or the last of April, as the local traditions preserved to this day occur on that evening only. People put the yellow flowers of broom. The bushes are known as gallestas. The flowers of the bush are known as mayas, which are placed on doors or gates and every doorway of houses, windows, granaries, currently also cars, which the populace collect on the evening of April 30th, when the Portuguese brooms are blooming to defend those places from bad spirits, witches, and the evil eye. The placement of the Mayflower or bush in the doorway must be done before midnight. These festivities are a continuum of the Os Mayos of Galiza or Galiza. In ancient times, this was done while playing traditional night music. In some places, children were dressed in these flowers and went from place to place begging for money or bread. On May 1st, people also used to sing Cantigas de Mayo, traditional songs related to this day and the whole month of May. The origin of this tradition can be traced to the Catholic Church story of Mary and Joseph fleeing to Egypt to protect Jesus from Herod. It was said that brooms could be found at the door of the house holding Jesus, but when Herod's soldiers arrived to the place, they found every door decorated with brooms. In Romania, on May Day, the Romanians celebrate the Armendin or Armendini, the beginning of summer, symbolically tied with the protection of crops and farm animals. The name comes from Slavonic Jereminu Dini, meaning Prophet Jeremiah's day, but the celebration rites and habits of this day are apotropaic and pagan, possibly originating in the cult of the god Pan. The day is also called Zewua Pelenuli or Mugwort Day or Zua Betivalor Drunkard's Day. And it is celebrated to ensure good wine in autumn and for people and farm animals alike, good health and protection from the elements of nature, storms, hail, illness, and pests. Uh, People would have parties in natural surroundings with lortari or fiddlers for those who could afford it. Then it is customary to roast and eat lamb along with new mutton cheese and to drink mugwort flavored wine or just red wine to refresh the blood and get protection from diseases. On the way back, the men wear lilac or mugwort flowers on their hats. Other apotropaic rites include, in some areas of the country, people washing their faces with the morning dew for good health and adorning the gates for good luck and abundance with green branches or with birch saplings for the houses with maiden girls. The entries to the animals' shelters are also adorned with green branches. All branches are left in place until the wheat harvest when they are used in the fire, which will bake the first bread from the new wheat. On May Day Eve, country women do not work in the field as well as in the house to avoid devastating storms and hail coming down on the village. Armenden is also Zilboilor or Oxen Day, and thus the animals are not to be used for work or else they could die or their owners could get ill. It is said that the weather is always good on May Day to allow people to celebrate. Serbia, Pervo, Pervomachki, Uranak, or Uranak, Rayville on 1st of May is a folk tradition and feast that consists of the fact that on May 1st, people go in the nature or even leave the day before and spend the night with a campfire. Most of the time, a dish is cooked in a kettle or in a barbecue. Among Serbs, this holiday is widespread along every town in Serbia, has its own traditional 1st of May excursion sites, and most often these are green areas outside the city. In Spain, May Day is celebrated throughout the country as Los Mayos, literally the Mays, often in a similar way to Fiesta de las Cruces in many parts of Hispanic America. One such example in Galicia is the festival Fiesta de los Mayos or Festa dos Mayos in Galician, the local language. It has a Celtic origin from the festivity of Beltane and consists of different traditions such as representations around a decorated tree or sculpture. People sing popular songs, also called mayos, making mentions of social and political events during the past year, sometimes under the form of a converse, while they walk around the sculpture with the percussion of two sticks. In Lugo and in the village Villa Garcia de Arauza, it was usual to ask a tip to the attendees, which used to be a handful of dried chestnuts, castañas mayolas, walnuts, or hazelnuts. Today, the tradition became a competition where the best sculptures and songs receive a prize. In the Galician city of Orense, this day is celebrated traditionally on May 3rd, the day of the Holy Cross. That is the Christian tradition replaced that in the the Christian tradition replaced the tree where the health, life, and resurrection are, according to the introit of that day's mass. In North America, in Canada, May Day is celebrated in some parts of the provinces of British Columbia, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Ontario. In Toronto, on the morning of May 1st, various Morris dancing troupes from Toronto and Hamilton gather on the road by Grenadier Cafe in High Park to dance in the May. The dancers and crowd then gather together and sing traditional May Day songs such as Howl and Toe and Padstow. In British Columbia, celebrations often take place not on May 1st, but during the Victoria Day long weekend later in the month and when the weather is likely to be better. The longest continually observed May Day in the British Commonwealth is held in the city of New Westminster, BC. There, the first May Day celebration was held on May 4th, 1870. In the United States, May Day was also celebrated by some early European settlers of the American continent. In some parts of the United States, May baskets are made. These are small baskets usually filled with flowers or treats and left at someone's doorstep. The giver rings the bell and runs away. Modern May Day ceremonies in the U.S. vary greatly from region to region, and many unite both the holiday's green root, pagan, and red root, labor traditions. May Day celebrations were common at women's colleges and academic institutions in the late 19th and early 20th century, a tradition that continues at Bryn Mawr College and Bryn University to this day. In Minneapolis, the May Day parade and festival is presented annually by In the Heart of the Beast puppet and mass theater on the first Sunday in May and draws around 50,000 people to Powderhorn Park. On May 1st itself, local Morris dance sides converge on an overlook of the Mississippi River at dawn and then spend the remainder of the day dancing around the metro area. In Hawaii, May Day is also known as Lei Day or Lei Day, and it is normally set aside as a day to celebrate island culture in general and the culture of the native Hawaiians in particular. Invented by poet and local newspaper columnist Don Blanding, the first Lei Day was celebrated on May 1st, 1927 in Honolulu. Leonard Red and Ruth Hawk composed May Day is Lei Day in Hawaii, the traditional holiday song. So the In the Heart of the Beast puppet and max theater, also known as Heart of the Beast or HOBT, which looks like Hobbit to me, is a puppet company and nonprofit organization from Minneapolis, Minnesota. The company has written and performed scores of full length puppet plays performed throughout the US, Canada, Korea, and Haiti, and toured the Mississippi River from end to end. The theater is best known for sponsoring the annual May Day parade and ceremony that is seen by as many as 50,000 people each year. The history: Hobbit began in 1973 as Powderhorn Puppet Theater, named for a neighborhood park and lake in Minneapolis. In 1975, the theater organized their first May Day procession and event. About 50 to 60 people and few puppets marched, raised the maypole in the park, and had some speeches. In the next years, the event grew and evolved into a way to celebrate community builders. In 1979, the theater changed its name based on a suggestion by poet and theater member Stephen Lisner. In 1987, they moved into the rented Avalon Theater, a former cinema originally built in 1909 as the Royal Theater. Hobbit then purchased the Avalon Theater in 1990 for the building and staging of productions. In 1999, the Wiseman Art Museum at the University of Minnesota exhibited Theater of Wonder, 25 Years in the Heart of the Beast, celebrating the works and productions by the theater. In 2017, the theater received $275,000 from the will of Sarah Bowman, a performer and longtime supporter of the theater. The funds are planned to be used in upgrading the theater building. In 2018, the organization was awarded a grant by the Jerome Foundation. This ongoing effort also supports renovation of East Lake Street, Minneapolis properties impacted by civil unrest during George Floyd protests. Interesting. In April 2023, Hobbit launched a free puppet and mask blending library. Over the years, productions have used various styles of puppet and mask performances, including bunraku and larger than life puppets. These include Puppet Cabaret Quarterly, The Minotaur or Amelia Earhart is Alive and Traveling in the Underworld 2018, Make Believe Neighborhood Celebrating Mr. Rogers 2018, La Natividad, Crow Boy based on the children's book by Taro Yashima, Queen by Junata Petrus and Eric N., La Befana, the story of Iqbal Masih, Don Quixote, This Land, a tribute to Woody Guthrie, Beowulf, 1985, and The Fisherman and His Wife, 1975 and 1974. The May Day Parade and Tree of Life Ceremony. The annual parade hosted by In the Heart of the Beast Theater draws large crowds and large large puppets and floats and entertainment by performers. Each year's parade or festival has a theme ranging from spring and environmental topics to social topics like peace and racial justice. The event also features a festival in Powderhorn Park and a Tree of Life ceremony involving more than 300 performers. On January 9th, 2019, the theater announced that the 2019 May Day parade would be the last one they could sponsor on their own due to high cost of organizing and running the event. In March 2019, a short documentary entitled Children of Spring premiered. The documentary focuses on the children involved in the May Day parade and festival. The film premiere helped raise $15,000 for May Day. The March equinox, or northward equinox, is the equinox on the Earth when the subsolar point appears to leave the southern hemisphere and cross the celestial equator, heading northward as seen from Earth. The March equinox is known as the vernal equinox or spring equinox in the northern hemisphere and as the autumnal equinox in the southern hemisphere. On the Gregorian calendar, the northward equinox can occur as early as 19th of March or as late as 21st of March at 0 degrees longitude. For a common year, the computed time slippage is about 5 hours 49 minutes later than the previous year, and for a leap year, about 8 hours 11 minutes earlier than the previous year. Balancing the increases of the common years against the losses of the leap years keeps the calendar date of the March equinox from drifting more than one day from March 20th each year. The March equinox may be taken to mark the beginning of astronomical spring and the end of astronomical winter in the northern hemisphere, but marks the beginning of astronomical autumn and the end of astronomical summer in the southern hemisphere. In astronomy, the March equinox is the 0 point of sidereal time and consequently right ascension. It also serves as a reference for calendars and celebrations in many cultures and religions. Constellation. The point where the sun crosses the celestial equator northwards is called the first point of Aries. However, due to the precession of the equinoxes, this point is no longer in the constellation Aries, but rather in Pisces. By the year end 2600, it will be in Aquarius. The Earth's degree the Earth's axis causes the first point of Aries to travel westwards across the sky at a rate of roughly 1 degree every 72 years. Based on the modern constellation boundaries, the northward equinox passed from Taurus into Aries in the year 1865 or 1866 BC, passed into Pisces in the year 67 or 68 BC, will pass into Aquarius in the year 2597, and will pass into Capricornus in the year 4312. It passed by but not into a corner of Cetus at 0 degrees 10 feet distance in the year 1489. Apparent movement of the sun. In its apparent motion on the day of an equinox, the sun's disk crosses the Earth's horizon directly to the east at sunrise, and again some 12 hours later, directly to the west at sunset. The March equinox, like all equinoxes, is characterized by having an almost exactly equal amount of daylight and night across most latitudes on Earth. Due to refraction of light rays in the Earth's atmosphere, the sun will be visible above the horizon even when its disk is completely below the limb of the Earth. Additionally, when seen from the Earth, the sun is a bright disk in the sky and not just a point of light. Thus, sunrise and sunset can be said to start several minutes before the sun's geometric center even crosses the horizon, and extends equally long after. These conditions produce differentials of actual durations of light and darkness at various locations on Earth during the equinox. This is most notable at the more extreme latitudes where the sun may be seen to travel sideways considerably during the morning and evening, drawing out the transition from day to night. At the north and south poles, the sun appears to move steadily around the horizon and just above the horizon, neither rising nor setting apart from a slight change in declination of about 0.39 degrees per day as the equinox passes. In culture, calendars. The Babylonian calendar began with the first new moon after the March equinox, the day after the return of the Sumerian goddess Inanna, later known as Ishtar, from the underworld, in the Akitu ceremony, with parades through the Ishtar Gate to the Eanna Temple and the ritual reenactment of the marriage to Tammuz, or Sumerian Dumuzi. The Persian calendar begins each year at the northward equinox, observationally determined at Tehran. The Indian national calendar starts the year on the day next to the vernal equinox on March 22nd or March 21st in leap years, with a 30-day month, 31 days in leap years, then has 5 months of 31 days, followed by 6 months of 30 days. The Julian calendar reform lengthened several months and replaced the intercalary month with an intercalary day to be added every 4 years to February. It was based on a length for the year of 365 days and 6 hours, 365.25, while the mean tropical year is about 11 minutes and 15 seconds less than that. This had the effect of adding about 3/4 of an hour every 4 years. The effect accumulated from inception in 45 BC until the 16th century, when the northern vernal equinox fell on the 10th or 11th of March. The date in 1452 was March 11th, 1152 Julian. In 2547, it will be March 20th, 2118 Gregorian, and March 3rd, 2118 Julian. In Western Christendom, the March equinox is one of the factors used to determine the date of Easter. However, the Gregorian reform of the calendar declared March 21st to be the date for the ecclesiastical equinox, and it is this fixed date, rather than the date of the actual astronomical event, that is used for the Easter date calculation. Commemorations. In Abrahamic tradition, the Jewish Passover usually falls on the first full moon after the northern hemisphere vernal equinox, although occasionally, currently 3 times every 19 years, it will occur on the second full moon. The Christian churches calculate Easter as the first Sunday after the first full moon on or after the March equinox. The official church definition for the equinox is the 21st of March. The Eastern Orthodox churches use the older Julian calendar, while the Western churches use the Gregorian calendar, and the Western full moons currently fall 4, 5, or 34 days before the Eastern ones. The result is that the two Easters generally fall on different days, but they sometimes coincide. The earliest possible Western Easter date is in any year is March 22nd on each calendar. The latest possible Western Easter date is in any year, the 25th of April. Iranian tradition. The northward equinox marks the first day of various calendars, including the Iranian calendar. The ancient Iranian people's New Year's festivals of Nowruz can be celebrated March 20th or March 21st. According to the ancient Persian mythology, Jamshid, the mythological king of Persia, ascended to the throne on this day, and each year this is commemorated with festivities for 2 weeks. Along with Iranian peoples, it is also a holiday celebrated by Turkic people, the North Caucasus, and in Albania. It is also a holiday for Zoroastrians, adherents of the Baha'i faith, and Nizari Ismaili Muslims, irrespective of ethnicity. West Asia and North Africa. In many Arab countries, Mother's Day is celebrated on the northward equinox. Sham el Nessim was an ancient Egyptian holiday which can be traced back as far as 2700 BC. It is still one of the public holidays in Egypt. Sometime during Egypt's Christian period, circa 200 through 639, the date moved to Easter Monday, but before then it coincided with the vernal equinox. South and Southeast Asia. According to the sidereal solar calendar, celebrations which originally coincided with the March equinox now take place throughout South Asia and parts of Southeast Asia on the day when the sun enters the sidereal Aries, generally around April 14th. In Cambodia, the Angkor Wat equinox is a solar phenomenon which dates back to the reign of Suri Avarman II. East Asia. The traditional East Asian calendars divide a year into 24 solar terms, literally climatic segments, and the vernal equinox, Chun Fin, Chinese and Japanese, Vietnamese Xuan Fan, marks the middle of the spring. In this context, the Chinese character means equal division within a season. In Japan, the vernal equinox day, Shunbun no Hi or no Hai, is an official national holiday and is spent visiting family graves and holding family reunions. Haigan is a Buddhist holiday exclusively celebrated by Japanese sects during both the spring and autumnal equinox. In Europe, Hilaria was ancient Roman festival commemorating death and resurrection of Attis. Li- Loudness. In Norse paganism, a Disablat was celebrated on the vernal equinox and drowning of Marzana. In the Americas, the spring equinox in Teotihuacan and the restricted Cahokia Woodhenge, a large timber circle located in the Mississippian culture Cahokia Archaeological Site near Collinsville, Illinois, is the site of annual equinox and solstice sunrise observances. Out of respect for Native American beliefs, these events do not feature ceremonies or rituals of any kind. In modern culture, World Storytelling Day is a global celebration of the art of oral storytelling celebrated every year on the day of the northward equinox. World Citizen Day occurs on the northward equinox. The Baha'i calendar year starts at the sunset preceding the March equinox, calculated for Tehran. In Annapolis, Maryland, United States, boatyard employees and sailboat owners celebrate the spring equinox with the burning of the Socks Festival. Traditionally, the boating community wears socks only during the winter. These are burned at the approach of warmer weather, which brings more customers and work to the area. Officially, nobody then wears socks until the next equinox. Neo pagans observe the March equinox, referred to as Ostara, as a cardinal point on the wheel of the year. In the northern hemisphere, some varieties of paganism adapt vernal equinox celebrations, while the southern hemisphere pagans adapt autumnal traditions. There is International Astrology Day, and on March 20th, 2014 and 2018, the March equinox was commemorated by an animated Google Doodle. Now, Cahokia. The Cahokia Mounds State Historic Site. Sorry. So, the Cahokia Mound State Historic Site is the site of a pre Columbian Native American city which existed circa 1050 to 1350 CE directly across the Mississippi River from modern St. Louis, Missouri. This historic park lies in southern western Illinois between East St. Louis and Collinsville. The park covers 2,200 acres or 890 ha, or about 3.5 square miles, 9 kilometers squared, and contains about 80 man made mounds. But the ancient city was much larger. At its apex around 1100 CE, the city covered about 6 square miles or 16 kilometers squared and included about 120 earthworks in a wide range of sizes, shapes, and functions. Cahokia was the largest and most influential urban settlement of the Mississippian culture, which developed advanced societies across much of what is now the central and the southeastern United States, beginning more than 1,000 years before European contact. Today, the Cahokia Mounds are considered to be the largest and most complex archaeological site north of the great pre Columbian cities in Mexico. Cahokia Mounds is a National Historic Landmark and a designated site for state protection. It is also one of the 24 UNESCO World Heritage Sites within the United States. the largest prehistoric earthen construction in the Americas north of Mexico. The site is open to the public and administered by the Illinois Historic Preservation Division and supported by the Cahokia Mounds Museum Society. In celebration of the 2018 Illinois State Bicentennial, the Cahokia Mounds were selected as one of the Illinois 200 Great Places by the American Institute of Architects Illinois Component, AIA Illinois. It was recognized by USA Today Travel Magazine as one of the selections for Illinois' 25 must see places. History. Development, ninth and 10th centuries. Although some evidence exists of occupation during the late Archaic period around 1200 BCE in and around the site, Cahokia, as it is now defined, was settled around 600 CE during the late Woodland period. Mound building at this location began with the emergent Mississippian cultural period around the 9th century CE. The inhabitants left no written records beyond symbols on pottery, shell, copper, wood, and stone, but the elaborately planned community, wood hinge, mounds, and burials reveal a complex and sophisticated society. The city's complex construction of earthen mounds requiring digging, excavation, and transportation by hand using woven baskets. Construction made use of 55 million cubic feet, 1.6 million cubic meters of earth, and much of the work was accomplished over a matter of decades. Its highly planned, large, smooth, flat, ceremonial plazas sited around the mounds, with homes for thousands connected by laid out pathways and courtyards, suggest the location served as a central religious pilgrimage city. The city's original name is unknown. The mounds were later named after the Cahokia tribe, a historic Illinois people living in the area when the first French explorers arrived in the 17th century. As this was centuries after Cahokia was abandoned by its original inhabitants, the Cahokia tribe was not necessarily descended from the earlier Mississippian era people. Most likely, multiple indigenous ethnic groups settled in the Cahokia Mounds area during the time of the city's apex. Historian Daniel Richter notes that the apex of the city occurred during the medieval warming period. This period appears to have fostered an agricultural revolution in upper North America, as the threefold crops of maize, beans or legumes, and gourds or squash was developed and adapted or bred to the temperate climates of the north from their origins in Mesoamerica. Richter also notes that Cahokia's advanced development coincided with the development in the southwest of the Chacho Canyon Society, which also produced large scale works in an apparent socially stratified society. The decline of the city coincides with the Little Ice Age, although by then the threefold agriculture remained well established throughout temperate North America. The rise and peak, 11th and 12th centuries. Cahokia became the most important center for the Mississippian culture. This culture was expressed in settlements that ranged along major waterways across what is now the Midwest, eastern, and southeastern United States. Cahokia was located in a strategic position near the confluence of the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers. It maintained trade links with communities as far away as the Great Lakes to the north and the Gulf Coast to the south, trading in such exotic items as copper, Mill Creek shirt, and whelk shells. Mill Creek shirt, most notably, was used in the production of hoes, a high demand tool for farmers around Cahokia and other Mississippian centers. Cahokia's control of the manufacture and distribution of these hand tools was an important economic activity that allowed the city to thrive. Mississippian cultured pottery and stone tools in the Cahokian style were found at the Silver Nail site near Red Wing, Minnesota, and materials and trade goods from Pennsylvania, the Gulf Coast, and Lake Superior have been excavated at Cahokia. Bartering, not money, was used in trade. At the high point of its development, Cahokia was the largest urban center north of the great Mesoamerican cities in Mexico and Central America. Home to about 1,000 people before circa 1050, its population grew rapidly after that date. According to a 2007 study in Quaternary Science Reviews, between AD 1050 and 1100, Cahokia's population increased from between 1,400 and 2,800 people to between 10,200 and 15,300 people, an estimate that applies only to a 1.8 square kilometer or 0.69 square mile high density central occupation area. Archaeologists estimate the city's population at between 6,000 and 40,000 at its peak, with more people living in outlying farming villages that supply the main urban center. As a result of archaeological excavations in the early 21st century, new residential areas were found to the west of Cahokia. This discovery increased estimates of historic area population. In the highest population estimates If the highest population estimates are correct, Cahokia was larger than any subsequent city in the United States until the 1780s, when Philadelphia's population grew beyond 40,000. Its population may have been larger than contemporaneous London and Paris. One of the major problems that large centers like Cahokia faced was keeping a steady supply of food. A related problem was waste disposal for the dense population, and Cahokia is believed to have become unhealthy from polluted waterways. Because it was such an unhealthy place to live, Snow believes that the town had to rely on social and political attractions to bring in steady supply of new immigrants. Otherwise, the town's death rate would have caused it to be abandoned earlier. Decline the 13th and 14th centuries. The population of Cahokia began to decline during the 13th century, and the site was abandoned by around 1350. Scholars have proposed environmental factors such as environmental degradation through overhunting, deforestation, and pollution, and climatic changes such as increased flooding and droughts as explanations for abandonment of the site. However, more recent research suggests that there is no evidence of human caused erosion or flooding at Cahokia. Political and economic problems may also have contributed to the community's decline. It is likely that social and environmental factors combined to produce the conditions that led people to leave Cahokia. Another possible cause is invasion by outside peoples, though the only evidence of warfare found are the defensive wooden stockade and watchtowers that enclosed Cahokia's uh, that enclosed their main ceremonial precinct. There is no other evidence for warfare, so the palisade may have been more for ritual or formal separation than for military purposes. Diseases transmitted among the large, dense urban population are another possible cause of decline. Many theories since the late 20th century propose conquest induced political collapse as the primary reason for Cahokia's abandonment. Together with these factors, researchers found evidence in 2015 of major floods at Cahokia, so severe as to flood dwelling places. Analysis of sediment from beneath Horseshoe Lake has revealed that two major floods occurred in the period of settlements at Cahokia in roughly 1100 to 1260 and 1340 to 1460. How many days does the Bible say? Is it 2160 or 1260? 1206 days. Whatever. Notable features. The original site contained 120 earthen mounds over an area of 6 square miles or 16 kilometers squared, of which 80 remain today. To achieve that, thousands of workers over decades moved more than an estimated 55 million cubic feet, 1,600,000 meters squared of earth in woven baskets to create this network of mounds and community plazas. Monk's Mound, for example, covers 14 acres or 5.7 ha, rises 100 feet or 30 meters, and was topped by a massive 5,000 square feet or 460 meters squared, building another 50 feet or 15 meters high. Monk's Mound is the largest structure and central focus of the city, a massive platform mound with four terraces, 10 stories high or 10 stories tall. It is the largest man made earthen mound north of Mexico. Facing south, it is 100 feet, 30 meters high, 951 feet or 290 meters long, 836 feet or 255 meters wide, and covers 13.8 acres or 5.6 ha. It contains about 814,000 cubic yards or 622,000 meters cubed of earth. The mound was built higher and wider over the course of several centuries through as many as 10 separate construction episodes. As the mound was built taller and the terraces and apron were added. Monk's Mound was named for the community of Trappist monks who resided there for a short time after Euro Americans settled in the area. Excavation on the top of Monk's Mound has revealed evidence of a large building, likely a temple or the residence of the paramount chief, which would have been seen throughout the city. This building was about 105 feet, 32 meters long, and 48 feet, 15 meters wide, and could have been as much as 50 feet or 15 meters high. It was about 5,000 square feet or 460 meters squared. The east and northwest sides of Monk's Mound were twice excavated in August 2007 during an attempt to avoid erosion due to slumping. These areas were repaired to preserve the mound. Urban landscape. Early in its history, Cahokia underwent a massive construction boom. Along with the early phase of Monk's Mound, an overarching urban layout was established at the site. It was built with a symbolic quadripartite worldview and oriented toward the four cardinal directions, with the main east-west and north-south axis defined with Monk's Mound near its center point. Four large plazas were established to the east, west, north, and south of Monk's Mound. To the south of Monk's Mound is the Grand Plaza, a large area that covered roughly 50 acres or 20 ha and measured over 1,600 feet or not 490 meters in length by over 900 feet or 270 meters in width. Researchers originally thought the flat, open terrain in this area reflected Cahokia's location on the Mississippi's alluvial floodplain, but instead, soil studies have shown that the landscape was originally undulating ridge and swell topography. In one of the earliest large scale construction projects, the site had been expertly and deliberately leveled and filled by the city's inhabitants. It is part of the sophisticated engineering displayed throughout the site. It was used for large ceremonies and gatherings, as well as for ritual games such as Chunky. The game was played by rolling a disc shaped chunky stone across the field. The men would throw spears where they thought the chunky stone would land. The game required a great deal of judgment and aim. The major ceremonial north south axis connects the main precinct with the large ridge top mortuary mound to its south, now known as the Rattlesnake Mound or Mound 66. The feature named the Rattlesnake Causeway by archaeologists was an elevated embankment about 18 meters, 59 feet wide, roughly 800 meters or 2,600 feet in length, and varies in height from 0.5 meters or 1.6 feet to almost 1.3 meters or 4.3 feet as it traverses a low, swampy area to the south of the Grand Plaza. It is aligned 5 degrees east of north, a direction thought to mimic the maximum southern moonrise of 5 degrees west of north, albeit in reverse. This is thought to have had symbolic associations to the builders in connection with their lunar maze goddess of the underworld. This is further strengthened by its close proximity to the ridgetop mortuary mound 72, the underworld connotations of the low water filled area the causeway traversed, and its terminus at the mortuary complex at the Rattlesnake Mound. The causeway itself may have been seen as a symbolic path of souls given children of the corn. The high status central district of Cahokia was surrounded by a 2-mile long palisade that was equipped with protective bastions. A later addition to the site, when the palisade was constructed, it cut through and separated some pre existing neighborhoods. Archaeologists found evidence of the stockade during excavation of the area and indications that it was rebuilt several times. Its bastions showed that it was mainly built for defensive purposes. Beyond Monk's Mound, as many as 120 more mounds stood at varying distances from the city center. To date, 109 mounds have been located, 68 of which are in the park area. The mounds are divided into 3 different groups: platform, conical, and ridgetop. Each appeared to have had its own meaning and function. In general terms, the city center seems to have been laid out in a diamond shaped pattern about 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers from end to end, while the entire city is 5 miles or 8 kilometers across from east to west. Mound 72. During excavation of Mound 72, a ridge-top burial mound south of main urban precinct, archaeologists found the remains of a man in his 40s who was probably an important Cahokian ruler. The man was buried on a bed of more than 20,000 marine shell disc beads arranged in the shape of a falcon, with the bird's head appearing beneath and beside the man's head, and its wings and tail beneath his arms and legs. The falcon warrior or birdman is a common motif in Mississippian culture. This burial clearly had powerful iconographic significance. In addition, a cache of sophisticated, finely worked arrowheads in a variety of different styles and materials was found near the grave of this important man, separated into 4 types, each form each from a different geographical region. The arrowheads demonstrated Cahokia's extensive trade links in North America. Archaeologists recovered more than 250 other skeletons from Mound 72. Scholars believe almost 62% of these were sacrificial victims, based on signs of ritual execution, method of burial, and other factors. The skeletons include four young males missing their hands and skulls, a mass grave of more than 50 women around 21 years old, with the bodies arranged in two layers separated by matting, a mass burial containing 40 men and women who appear to have been violently killed. Some of these may have been buried alive. From the vertical position of some of the fingers, which appear to have been digging in the sand, it is apparent that not all the victims were dead when they were entered, that some had been trying to pull themselves out of the mass bodies. The relationship of these burials to the center burial is unclear. They were unlikely to have all deposited at the same time. Wood in several parts of the mound has been radiocarbon dated to between 950 and 1000 CE. Excavations have indicated that Mound 72 was not constructed as a single mound, but rather as a series of smaller mounds. These mounds were reshaped and covered over to give Mound 72 its final ridgetop shape. Copper Workshop. Excavations near Mound 34 from 2002 to 2010 revealed a copper workshop. This unique find was originally discovered in the 1950s by archaeologist Gregory Perino, but its exact location was lost for 60 years. It is the only known copper workshop to be found at a Mississippian culture site. The area contains the remains of three tree stumps thought to have been used to hold anvil stones. Analysis of copper found during excavation showed that it had been annealed, a technique involving repeatedly heating and cooling the metal as it is worked, as blacksmiths do with iron. Artisans produced religious items such as long nosed god maskets, ceremonial earrings with a symbolic shape thought to have been used in fictive kinship rituals. Many of the stylistically related Mississippian copper plates, such as the Wolfing cache from southeastern Missouri, some of the Etowah plates from Georgia, and many of the Sphero plates from Oklahoma, are associated with the Greater Braden style and are thought to have been made in Cahokia in the 13th century. Cahokia Wood Hinge. The Cahokia wood hinge was a series of large timber circles located roughly 850 meters or 2,790 feet to the west of Monk's Mound. They are thought to have been constructed between 900 and 1100 CE, with each one being larger and having 12 more posts than its predecessor. The site was discovered during salvage archaeology undertaken by Doctor Warren Whitry in the early 1960s interstate highway construction boom. Although the majority of the site contained village house features, a number of unusually shaped large post holes were also discovered. When the holes were plotted out, they formed several arcs of equally spaced holes. Detailed analytical work supported the hypothesis that the placement of these posts was by design, and Whitry hypothesized that the arcs could be whole circles. He began referring to the circles as wood hinges, comparing the structures to England's well known circles at Woodhenge and Stonehenge. Additional excavations in the 1960s through 1980s used predictions based on verified post hole locations and spacing to locate other post holes and confirmed the existence of five separate timber circles in the general vicinity. The circles are now designated wood hinges 1 through 5 in Roman numerals. In 1985, a reconstruction of Woodhenge 3 was built with the post being placed into the original excavated post positions. The circle, which has 48 posts in the circle and a 49th central post, has been used to investigate Archaeoastronomy at Cahokia. The Illinois Historic Preservation Division that oversees the Cahokia site hosts public sunrise observations at the vernal and autumnal equinoxes and the winter and summer solstices. Out of respect for Native American beliefs, these events do not feature ceremonies or rituals of any kind. Related mounds. Until the 19th century, a series of similar mounds was documented as existing in what is now the city of St. Louis, some 8 miles or 13 kilometers to the west of Cahokia. Most of these mounds were leveled during the development of St. Louis, and much of their material was reused in construction projects. The lone survivor of these mounds is Sugarloaf Mound. Located on the west bank of the Mississippi, it marked the initial border between St. Louis and the once autonomous city of Carondelet. One of the largest Mississippian sites is Kincaid Mounds State Historic Site, located in Massac and Polk counties in southern Illinois. It is 140 miles or 230 kilometers southeast of Cahokia, located in the floodplain of the Ohio River. With a total of 19 mounds at the complex, it is considered the fifth largest Mississippian site in terms of the number of monuments. It is believed to have been a chiefdom, as an elite burial mound was among those found. The site is designated as National Historic Landmark. Cahokia Museum and Interpretive Center. The Cahokia Museum and Interpretive Center, which receives up to 1 million visitors a year, was designed by AAIC Inc. The building, which opened in 1989, uh, received the Thomas H. Madigan Award, the St. Louis Construction News and Reviews Readers' Choice Award, the Merit Award from the Metal Construction Association, and the Outstanding Achievement Award from the Brick Manufacturer Association. Designations. Cahokia Mounds was first protected by the state of Illinois in 1923 when its legislature authorized purchase of a state park. Later designation as a state historic site offered additional protection, but the site came under significant threat from the federal highway building program in the 1950s. The highway program reduced the site's integrity. However, it increased funding for emergency archaeological investigations. These investigations became intensive and today continue. They have resulted in the present understanding of the national and international significance of the site. The site was designated a National Historic Landmark on July 19, 1694, and listed on the National Register of Historic Places on October 15, 1966. In 1982, UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, designated the site a World Heritage Site. This is the only such self contained site in Illinois and among 24 World Heritage Sites in the United States in 2009. State Senator Evelyn M. Bowles wrote about the Cahokia Mound site. Through the years, my friends and I made occasional Sunday afternoon trips to the mounds. When I became the state senator, it afforded me the opportunity to secure funds for the acquisition of additional acreage in which there are smaller mounds. Many of these have contained additional artifacts. The designation has helped protect the property and attract funds to conduct research on this significant civilization. And we're going to leave it there at 1444 minutes on the clock. We'll pick it back up at the priest, or if spirit leads me to something else tomorrow, I don't know, but we will continue. I will get all of this information out. I thank you again for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and donate to the mission at $Sistah for Sisters, Cash App, or sistahforsisters@gmail.com and PayPal. Thanks again. Love you. Peace.